We're going live. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, whether you're here in the room or joining us virtually. It is October 9th, 2023. It's the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. Madam Clerk, could we have the meeting statement, please?
Adequate notice of the meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, including the time, date, and location of the meeting. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Could we have, oh, I'm sorry. Who's doing the land acknowledgement tonight? David, it's you. Thank you. Okay.
We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come. And I just want to comment, especially moving to do this on this celebration, the day for celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day.
Thank you, David. Madam Clerk, we have the roll call, please.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Here.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Sachs?
Here.
Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Newland?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. All right, if you care to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have minutes to approve from July 24th. If someone would like to, Leticia, thank you. Is there, Michelle's got the second. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Leticia and Leighton, I believe you're going to handle the proclamation for us?
Yes, thank you. After I borrow, thank
You're going to share glasses and
you.
the
Yes,
proclamation.
That's right.
I think I like these. This is a proclamation celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day 2023. Whereas the residents and elected leaders of the municipality of Princeton strive for an open and mutually supportive community that celebrates diversity and rejects systematic racism and oppression that targets all minority and indigenous peoples, and whereas the municipality offers respect to the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape tribal nation, the Powhatan Lenape Nation, the Ramapo Lenape Nation, the Lenape, recognizes the forced diaspora of the Delaware tribe and the Delaware Nation of Oklahoma, and the Stockbridge-Muncie community of Wisconsin, and acknowledges that the municipality was built on this small portion of the Lenapehoking, the vast territory of which the Lenape were stewards for thousands of years. And whereas along the way, the Lenape faced cultural suppression, forced assimilation, and devastation of their population through the spread of disease, Princeton now seeks to honor the Lenape in New Jersey and elsewhere for their practices of environmental sustainability and their understanding of the ways in which all elements are mutually interdependent, and honors also their cultural resilience throughout this nation's history. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations at the International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, sponsored by the United Nations, and the United Nations later issued its Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in 2007, and the municipality applauds the reaffirmation of tribal nation status to the Nanticoke, Lenni Lenape, and other indigenous nations in New Jersey by New Jersey Attorney General S. Gerber Gruel in 2018. The city of Newark became the first municipality in New Jersey to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day in 2017, while Princeton became the second to do so in 2019. And
Whereas the act of officially recognizing Indigenous peoples on the second Monday of October will encourage the development and dissemination of truthful representations and acknowledgments of wrongs committed by European colonists and their descendants, who, since their first occupations in the Americas in the 16th century, engaged in forced removals of indigenous peoples from their homelands and committed acts that nearly exterminated them. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Council of the Municipality of Princeton, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, that the Municipality of Princeton supports the formal institution of Indigenous Peoples Day to provide impetus for developing educational opportunities to explore and celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the indigenous peoples in our region and beyond. Princeton observes Indigenous Peoples Day to honor New Jersey's indigenous heritage and to foster a greater sense of inclusiveness towards indigenous people. The municipality of Princeton encourages all businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. Princeton firmly commits itself to continue its efforts to promote the well-being and growth of New Jersey's indigenous communities. The mayor and council jointly declare the second Monday in October to be Indigenous Peoples Day in Princeton, New Jersey.
Thank you both. Okay, we have announcements and reports next. We'll start with members of council. Michelle.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that today we cut the ribbon at the Hilltop new adaptive playground. It was really exciting to celebrate this. It's a first in the region, certainly first for Princeton. It's really a great model. And I want to just thank some of the people that we thanked earlier today, particularly the Recreation Department, Evan Moorhead's leadership as the director. The Mercer County at Play was a county match fund, so thanking the county commissioners, county executive for helping with that and supporting. I think it's great that the town and county work together on these types of initiatives. There's a lot to do in our town, but we took a real big step today. And I just want to thank everybody. And also Infrastructure and Operations, Deanna and her team, thank you for all the work that was done. So everybody who was involved with it. And thank you to my colleagues and mayor.
Thank you, Michelle. Eve, sorry.
Thanks, Mark. Just a couple of announcements. The Environmental Commission hosted hopefully the first annual greenhouse tours on Saturday, September 30th, which were very successful. Over 200 people participated in the tours of several different houses that had sustainability features, some with yards as well. That also had sustainability features. The visitors learned a lot, and the hosts and the visitors enjoyed themselves, and people seem to be anxious to do it again next year. The Environmental Commission worked with Sustainable Princeton. Thank you, Christine, and your staff for everything that you did. Thanks to the library for hosting a screening is the right word, a screening of the films about the greenhouse tours beforehand. And thanks to our legal counsel for taking care of all of those concerns. PEC also approved at its September meeting the revised green development checklist, which has been a long time in the making. It's a shorter and much improved from the previous version, so I'll be sharing that with council and hoping for your enthusiastic buy-in, and then we'll turn it over to legal to get it ordinanced, hopefully end of this year or beginning of next year. And just one further report from the Library Board of Trustees. The library hosted the Children's Book Festival on Saturday, which was a fabulous event. Unfortunately, I don't have any children who are of the right age to appreciate the books that were there, but it was really great. There were about 50 authors, hundreds and hundreds of people came, and the library this year was able to use the whole plaza thanks to working with various entities there, so that was also a great success. Thanks.
Thank you, Eve. Other council, Leighton.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to announce that in recognition of Paul Robeson's 125th birthday, there will be a musical event on October 15th at the Nassau Street Presbyterian Church in honor of Paul Robeson. And if you're interested, you can look on the Paul Robeson website in Princeton to get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Leighton. Other, okay, do we have any staff announcements or reports for now? No? Okay. Next up is public comments for items not on the agenda. If anybody here wants to talk about something, again, not on the agenda, just come on up, say your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, so a timer will show up. But please, whoever.
Let's see if this is working. Can you hear me?
Oh, wait a minute. That microphone, maybe it's not turned on?
Turn it on. It seems to be on.
Oh, maybe just get real close to it.
Is it good? All right.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Great. So, hello. I am Malif Cam, a student at Princeton High School, and I wanted to start off by saying how much I appreciate all of the nature that has been preserved in Princeton thanks to the council. So I've recently started participating with the Ridgeview Turtles under Dr. Shanley's mentorship, and I'm also an intern with the Environmental Education Fund, which is based in Trenton. I am also the founder of SFIA, or Students for Animal Advocacy and Environmental Action, which is a student group in Princeton High School focused on promoting legal action for the environment as well as animal welfare. Me and my fellow friends at SFIA ask you today to endorse a proposed amendment to the New Jersey Constitution nicknamed the New Jersey Green Amendment. It is Assembly Bill ACR 72 and Senate Bill SCR 15. The amendment has bipartisan support, and as we all know, the animals and trees are nonpartisan. The amendment would be adopted based upon a ballot referendum, and if the referendum passed, it would amend Article 1 of the state constitution. The current version of the Green Amendment reads as follows. Every person has a right to a clean and healthy environment, including pure water, clean air, ecologically healthy habitats, and to the preservation of natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities of the environment. The state shall not infringe upon these rights by action or by inaction. The state's public natural resources, among them its waters, airs, flora, fauna, climate, and public lands, are the common property of all the people, including both present and future generations. The state shall serve as trustee of these resources and shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people. This paragraph and the rights stated herein are 1, self-executing, and 2, shall be in addition to any rights conferred by the public trust doctrine or common law. So New York, Hawaii, Pennsylvania, and Montana have versions of the Green Amendment in their state constitutions right now. The Montana case actually marked the first time a U.S. court has ruled that young people have a fundamental right to a climate system that is safe and stable for their lives. My generation will have to deal with climate change and its resulting migrant crisis, food shortages, heat waves and disasters, biodiversity crisis, high public debt, depleted groundwater around the world, as well as forever chemicals contaminating the environment, just to name a few. The Green Amendment gives us a fighting chance to preserve what is left of nature in New Jersey, as well as have a livable climate. I started the Animal Advocacy and Environmental Action Club at Princeton High School, and in one day, 78 students signed up to be a member. This clearly shows how passionate the youth are about this, and we know the Green Amendment will give us a chance to survive in a changing world with a changing climate and let us have the power to change our future. The more towns who endorse the amendment, the greater the likelihood that it will be on the ballot next year. History will mention the actions we take today, as well as the inactions, the initiatives we didn't take. We are your kids, and we need a livable environment in our future, just like the ones you had. I want to thank Princeton once more for all they've done in support of nature so far, and would like to say that I am confident in this council. So thank you, and I do have flyers about the Green Amendment, so wherever you would like.
If you would actually give those to the clerk, that would be great. And she'll share them with all the elected officials so that we can consider that at a future meeting. I'm sorry, Eve?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thank you so much for this. I want you to know that this has been brought to the Environmental Commission already. We discussed this, Environmental Commission voted, and once I get the resolution from the Environmental Commission, I was going to present this to council. So if you make sure to give us your contact information, we can make sure that you'll be invited for that moment, which hopefully my colleagues, I'm taking a little bit of a gamble, but hopefully my colleagues will support, and we'd love for you to be present for that. You could just write it down, give it to the clerk, and she'll spread it widely. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And just what was the name of your club again?
Could you just come up to the microphone? That way the people, yeah, if you say it into the microphone, the people virtually listening can actually hear us.
Sorry. So my club is Students for Animal Advocacy and Environmental Action. And this is a new club at Princeton High School.
Thank you. I just have to say this is an example of what fantastic students our Princeton High School produces. It's this very exciting. Thank you for coming.
It really is a great environment and encouraging.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Okay. Who's next?
Good evening. My name is Lisa. I have a neighbor living in my building, Amcor. She was born 1920. She was born in Philippines. I would like to ask the town maybe show some appreciation. First of all, this lady's very nice, always smiling. I guess that is her secret of longevity. But 103, away from her hometown, I thought that she deserved her birthday. And she lived with her daughter. Second problem is I want to ask the progress of the nutrition program. You mentioned that Susan Patterson is renovation in the kitchen. I need to know. I think since the last time it was 2 months.
Right, for the county nutrition program? I'm sorry, Linda, I have
No,
bad hearing.
I'm sorry, the county nutrition program.
Right, we don't have an exact date from the county yet as to when the program's going to move to the Suzanne Patterson Center, but they have told us they are going to move it there. So as far as we know, they're waiting until the kitchen renovations are done.
Okay.
And then that'll be worked out.
First of all, I want to know if the job already started. Oh, they haven't even begin remodel the kitchen. I'm sorry.
I don't know that off the top of my head. We'd have to reach out to the senior.
Sorry, I spoke to you about this. We were, I can't remember where we were, but we spoke about this.
Church.
Right, it was at the church, right?
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you, yes.
thank you. Yes, this is in progress. They are waiting. Last I heard, I think they were waiting for the appliances. So we're not talking months. We're not talking like 6
Thank you.
months or something like that.
Okay.
But it hasn't happened yet, and I'm not sure. I think they hoped it would happen by the end of September. So I don't know, Deanna, if you know anything else about this. If you send me an email, I will check with the Senior Resource Center. They would have the most up-to-date information. I can get
Thank
that to
you.
you. Yeah, sure,
Thank you
thanks.
very much, Eve.
And Linda, on your first
No,
item.
only- yeah.
Don't, that's okay. We're talking back and forth. We'll let it go over. But on your first item, I know I owe you a phone call, and I will talk to you about your neighbor's 103rd birthday, and we'll see what we can do with either a proclamation or whatever to help mark
Thank
that
you.
occasion.
I really appreciate that.
That's fine.
Very last is, I've been living here 8 years, and the cell phone has been a problem. I don't know when this is signal or the tower going to improve? I was told you have a special committee that is handle that. Is that true? Can I-
If you use Verizon for your cell phone, then that is true. We've been beating up on Verizon quite literally for quite a while. And I believe they finally gave us a plan. And supposedly that plan is a way to improve reception throughout the community. So if it's not Verizon that you have, I'm not sure where that might be if it's a different carrier.
Because usually seniors, the only, device is the cell phone because landline can be expensive. So in the case of life and death, the communication is very important. So I think the phone line is essential for senior. So I'm pleaded
Okay?
with the town
Okay.
council and mayor.
Thank you, Linda.
And thank you very much.
Right.
Good night.
And I'll make sure I call you tomorrow. I've now said it in public, so I better do it.
Thanks,
May-
Ms. Wu.
Mayor, I would just wanted to mention that Crown Castle is working with Verizon, and they have planned to put a new small cell node on Elm Road near 300 Elm Court. So once that's under construction and running, it should be much better cell reception over in that area of town.
Thank you. Do we have other members of public either in the room or attending virtually that have any item to bring up under items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none. We will go to the next item, and we have a presentation to the Mayor and Council of Princeton of the Stormwater Utilities Feasibility Study Phase 1 findings.
All right, so joining us tonight are members of Princeton Hydro. We have Dr. Clay Emerson will be presenting the findings and the report from Phase 1 of the Stormwater Utility Study.
Thank you, Deanna. Can you all hear me just fine? And you all don't have a screen.
Yeah, it's just important that you speak close to the microphone for the people that
people
aren't
below.
in the rooms, or it doesn't get picked up on the transmission.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for your attention. This evening, I will keep this brief, and what I'm here to do is present a very much Cliff Notes version of Phase 1 of the study, which was recently completed. And I have some slides to follow along here. So here's where we are. As you already know, it's a 4-phase approach as laid out in the very thorough and detailed RFP. We are at the current phase completion of Phase 1 with a go, no-go decision for Phase 2, which is what ultimately brings us together. Some familiar faces and some of our team that you may or may not know, but everyone was very involved in the process. So ultimately, the team of Princeton Hydro and WSP were selected in 2022. Phase 1 of 4, some major steps that we're doing along the way that will set the course or the path for the potential future phases of the study and potential implementation of a stormwater utility. So we're trying to answer some key questions up front, get an understanding of what it might mean for Princeton specifically, and then ultimately decide to move to Phase 2, which will be an even deeper dive. So I won't have a lot of background about stormwater utility other than one simple slide. Again, this is not going to be as detailed as that would require in the time we have, but simply put, stormwater costs money. Things you do as a municipality that relate to stormwater cost money. And a stormwater utility, which has been implemented maybe 3,000 times nationwide, none so far in New Jersey, is a way to establish a level of service, understand the cost of stormwater in municipality, and use impervious cover typically as the measure or the water meter, so to speak. So what did we find? This involved a detailed, numerous interviews with Princeton staff across the board, from Deanna through pretty much everyone you could imagine. What are some current services associated with related to stormwater management in Princeton that you all might be familiar with or think of when someone says stormwater? Obvious things like inlet cleaning, street sweeping, trash, leaf, brush collections, and so on and so forth, all the way up to more acute things like responding to flood emergencies. And these are photos from the community, probably all too familiar. So there are a series of current expenditures, and the estimate here came from those interviews. A lot of information went into that number. That's an annual estimate for services related to stormwater current, so a kind of current year snapshot. It is an estimate, so kind of an average annual estimate, and some of the things that went into that number there are listed. But again, another familiar scene from the community. And we see these kind of things are becoming seemingly more and more familiar as we deal with a changing climate. So that's the point of this, is what is not getting done and what needs to be addressed in the near term in the future. So not only are we dealing with rainfall that seems to be coming shorter duration, higher intensity, but there's also the New Jersey MS4 permit compliance landscape has changed recently, and that's going to ask more of municipalities such as Princeton. And then there's some other, obvious Princeton-specific things here. You all have your own flood impacts, your local areas that routinely flood. And ultimately, and this isn't a dig on Princeton, but you see it across the map. Stormwater typically is met in a reactive rather than a proactive fashion, and that's something that it would benefit everyone to shift to a more proactive strategy. But that takes a stable revenue source, and it probably, in this case, is going to take a revenue source that is bigger than what is currently available. So that's the take-home of this slide. That's the take-home of a good portion of the Phase 1 findings. This is a familiar site maybe to some of you, of one of those big nuts that needs to be cracked, so to speak. So we did look at the organizational structure of the municipality. It's complicated. There's a lot on here, and I apologize, the font is small to fit it all, but the point is just that, when you probably initially think of stormwater, your head turns to Deanna and the engineering group, but it gets into a lot of other things, that you might not at first think of. And this is a pretty typical organizational layout. It's unique to Princeton for sure, but you might see something similar in a lot of other communities, so there's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is, but it also makes stormwater difficult to get a handle on, because you don't have one person that has their hands in all of it. And again, this chart was developed from those series of interviews. So in general, coordination between all operations to increase the effectiveness, it does need focus, like we see time and time again. There's some physical improvements that are needed, as we understand it, the Public Works facility. And as this MS4 mandate cranks up some new requirements for all municipalities in the state, there's going to be a shift there. And a dedicated stormwater field staff to address these critical priorities would be a big deal. All these things cost money. I don't need to remind you of that. From a policy standpoint, the majority of this, if you choose to proceed, will happen in phase 2. Some baseline policy things did need to be not permanently decided, but decided for the purpose of the completion of phase 1. Those are things like the cost allocation methodology, which in the vast majority of stormwater utilities is going to be impervious cover as the kind of metric for how much runoff a given property might generate. And then we also took some initial looks at potential rate structures, but again, that's primarily a phase 2 process. So this part is a little bit more down to earth. I guess no pun intended, but we had to look at the land cover. I mean, what is Princeton when it comes to impervious cover? How is it distributed amongst the different property owners, users, taxpayers? And so this was where a lot of the effort went, but we had to look at all approximately 1,800 non-single-family residential properties, all the businesses, every parcel in the municipality, and measure, by hand, sitting at the desktop, mind you, at a GIS, a computer, and measure that impervious cover. When we came to the residential properties, which the majority of parcels within Princeton, roughly 75%, are residential properties, we didn't measure all those. We, in accordance with the RFP, and we agree with what was laid out in the RFP, we measured a detailed analysis of 5% of those, or 360. And this is just a quick screenshot example of those. Perhaps this is someone's home you know. And what did that tell us? And this is really the findings of that land cover analysis. So as I mentioned, approximately 76%, not of the land cover, but of the parcels themselves in Princeton are residential properties, and you all know this better than I do. But when we looked at those, and this is really unique to Princeton. This is from a stormwater utility standpoint. This is kind of Princeton's fingerprint, if you will. So this is really unique. This is, you would, as you go to different communities across the state and the country, this graph would look very different. But what this depicts is that there is a median of the 360. This is a histogram, so these add up to 360. The median, or roughly on average, 4,600 square feet of impervious cover. That is higher than we see in other communities in general. And the other thing that stands out is this distribution has a skew to the right. And what that means, and I'm not picking on anyone in Princeton with this image here, but there are some bigger homes. And this gives us some suggestions for phase 2 about rate structures that might be more equitable. And that's the word that you're going to hear throughout this process, is equity. Speaking of equity, who currently pays for that $760,000 roughly is the residential properties. Taxes generated from those residential parcels at around 80%, 81%. And if we were to look
Sir, I'm sorry, Sue, are you classifying multifamily residential? Is that under commercial or residential?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Multifamily? Multifamily,
Yeah.
do you have that class? Because technically, like for tax purposes, that's a commercial property, but in your classification here, I'm just wondering, how do you have that?
I think they are in the residential grouping here.
They're in the
and
residential
there were a number
group.
of them, and there were some GIS things that had to happen to make sure. There was apartment complexes, there was all kinds of different classifications, so we kind of had to look at those on a case-by-case basis, and I think they're, in this pie chart, they're grouped into that residential, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
But the key, so if we take that information, the current tax revenue, look at it, 100% on the left side, and if we look at a potential stormwater utility or user fee based on impervious cover, you can see that there is a shift. And if again, this is just making some assumptions using the land cover analysis, the results of that analysis, and and comparing a pretty simple standard rate structure, how those fees would be distributed amongst the users. And you do see some shifts. You also see some things that don't particularly change too much. But these are, preliminary findings of the first phase. I found this to be one of the highlights of the process, the stakeholder engagement. So obviously we had the steering committee, which is Princeton staff and the consultant team, kind of the internal, and then we had the external group, which is the Princeton Stormwater Focus Group, which we had 2 in-person meetings starting in April of this year, and they were excellent. I mean, the participants were highly engaged. We had to get kicked out of the room, I think, both times. People had a lot of good comments and discussion. We got a lot of good feedback, excellent turnout. You had a very engaged group. And this is really only the beginning. I think in phase 2, there's like another 19 meetings of all kinds of different groups, including council, along the way. So the public engagement has really only just begun, but it does need to start in the very beginning, which it did. So, so that was extremely beneficial. So conclusions and next step to wrap it up and to promise to fit within the 15 minutes that I did. The key findings, we know revenue capacity must increase to address current system needs, climate change, new MS4 requirements coming from the state. A stormwater utility, by its nature, is more equitable in that it is based on the impervious area that generally is generating a disproportionate amount of runoff. Stakeholders need to be engaged from the very beginning. They were. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2, the stakeholder engagement will be ratcheted up a few notches. So that detailed cost level of service, 10-year forecast of future investments, the burning questions you probably have are going to be things that will be answered in phase 2 should you decide to proceed, including different rate options, what is most equitable for the residents and business owners within Princeton specifically. And again, I can't stress enough the stakeholder engagement that phase 2 will bring. So, with that, I think we have a resolution that was prepared. We suggest moving on to phase 2. You're one of the very first municipalities in the state to seriously consider this. Now that it became an opportunity just a few years ago. So that's just about 15 minutes, and we would like to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. All right, David and then Eve.
I have 2 basic questions after reviewing the report. One has to do with this decision whether to include public roads and sidewalks as paying fees. And obviously we'd be paying a fee to ourselves, but I would like there was really no explanation in the report of the pros and cons of doing that. I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll say about that, and you'll astutely pointed out because it is in the summary, and we left it out of the presentation for time's sake and it's a complicated question, as you can appreciate, I'm sure. But one thing that is typically the way that those spaces are viewed in other communities. Number one, I guess the short answer is that it's really a policy decision, and it's a policy decision for phase 2. But I want to give you a better answer than that.
I'd appreciate it.
So it is about, there's a lot of, roughly 120 miles of roads in the municipality, and there's, stormwater pipe under the majority of that. So it's a big chunk of the impervious cover in the municipality. What other utilities view that as, or their way to not get around it, is that that's what the utility is there to support. So those streets are where our pipes are. Those gutters on those streets are what convey runoff to those inlets that are in the street, to the pipes that are in the street. In certain cases or in certain storms, depending on the intensity, runoff is conveyed in the streets proper, which is not ideal, but it's better than your front yard or your basement in many instances. So oftentimes those impervious spaces are looked at as what the utility is there to provide the funding source to keep up. So that's probably the best answer I have for you right now, other than, it is a phase 2 thing that will require more attention. Pros and cons, I don't know, it seems like a lot of fancy accounting when it seems to me a little more simple that this is what the utility is there to support. But we knew it was a fair question. It came up. The effort to digitize those areas, so we actually manually digitized all those sidewalks and all those streets, was not to be understated, because we knew that it was a fair question, and at least you want to know what % that is. So we have that information,
Right.
which will make those policy decisions when they arise in phase 2 better informed.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that had occurred to me, and I don't know if this makes sense to you, but that if we're paying a fee for these surfaces, then we have an incentive to implement green infrastructure and receive the credits that would go along with that. Whereas if we're not paying for it, it's pretty easy to just go along and resurface our roads in the old way and not worry too much about, are we doing green infrastructure? Are we improving the way the stormwater is managed? So is that a correct inference?
It is, and I would say, I didn't mention even that, this utility, should you go forward, will have a credit system by law. It must. And that is an incentive. And I would say regardless of whether you include that public roads or not, I think the municipality probably owns some other impervious cover where, they could have those opportunities there as well.
Okay.
But it's a good point, and I'm sure, hopefully this won't be the last time we discuss it. I think it'll
Great.
come up.
My second question, you did a nice job. You put a number on the operational costs that we're currently seeing. I didn't see anything about the capital costs that we're currently incurring. And I did hear you say, that we're being reactive and that we're not really investing in infrastructure. But one question I had is whether the repairs that are associated with flooding, like, we had major repairs over by the General Johnson Drive. We had major repairs on Quaker Road, with Ida. And it seems like those are the kinds of costs. I know some of them get reimbursed by FEMA, but I'm assuming some of them don't. And I'm wondering if those are the kinds of costs that can come out of a utility.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also they can be waged as matching funds for other agencies and things that
Right.
you can leverage them.
So is there any attempt to sort of look back at the last 5 years and see how much we're spending on those kinds of things as capital expenses, or any other attempt to quantify the capital expenses, or is that phase 2 also?
No, I think that they were in there. I think some portion of that. I don't remember exactly how we, spread it amongst the years, but I think there was some of that.
We
I know
did
we
look
got
at
that
that.
information in the
Yes.
interviews.
Yeah, we did provide that, and I think we've even done a look ahead
Okay.
as
So-
to what we anticipate.
So it's great that you did it. I'm not sure it ended up in the report. So, but maybe it's an appendix or something. I just didn't find it.
Okay.
But I'd be curious to see that information. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah,
David.
thank you.
Thank you for this. So just to confirm my understanding that the only type of land that is, the only type of property that is not included would be agricultural. Everyone else is subject to the fee. correct?
That's correct, and that comes right from the legislation. That's not a
Okay.
choice that you made. That's
Right.
in the rules, and it has to be a specific agricultural. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure I understood that. So my questions relate to reading over the proposal earlier rather than what you've presented tonight, which is very succinct and good, and I think really did a great job of summing up where we are and where we hope to go. So the proposal for Phase 2 talks about community engagement. So I'm wondering, like, what level of detail does that include? For example, does that include letters to the editor or responses to letters to the editor written by people in the community? I know it talked about providing information for social media, but not actually kind of monitoring social media for just trying to get a handle on where does community engagement end and what portion of it do we need to pick up, which...
Right. It would need to be a team effort. It would be, I envision it, we would be providing information that would go into those kind of outreach things at the, like I said, I think 19 meetings we would be attending. There would be members of the public there. So I believe the goal is that we would be not manning your social media, but giving you the information that you need to inform your citizens of the process and how it would impact them.
That's what I was assuming, but just wanted to clarify where your level of service stops and what we would have to do. So I think that will be a very important thing for us to step up to, is to provide that support and then to answer questions from residents that may come through social media, may come through letters to the editor, letters to council. So good to know that. So I learned something new, I think, reading it today. The state takes 5% of the stormwater utility. Okay, so yes, you must explain this to me.
Well, so there is not, that's in the act. You did read the act. And in preparing for this meeting tonight, I said, you know what? These people, someone on that council, they all read it. Someone is going to ask that question. Did I not? So that's what it says. I am not aware of that being something that is done in any other state. New Jersey is one of the last to adopt, to have a utility anywhere in the state. It's a better question for DEP than it is for me.
Yeah, but
frankly.
my next question was,
So.
does any other state do this? And my third question is, what are we getting for this? Why are they taxing or imposing a fee on our residents when we're doing the right thing? I had a little moment of, you can sense it.
If we could
I'm a little angry
extrapolate
about
that this.
to
20 other, I mean, if we're going to
All right,
start
so,
asking.
so yes, this is a good question to take up with our state reps.
I'm desperately trying to not render my opinion on it here.
I'm sure you have no opinion,
But,
right? Okay.
But I don't. It was something that jumped out at me, and there hasn't been a lot of discussion about it. I don't think it's going to be a popular. I mean, in their defense, they seem to want to make this happen. They know that this is a solution that many communities need. I think it may have been an attempt to help them help municipalities. I'm not sure. I shouldn't speak for them, and I'm starting to.
I mean,
but
I know they're providing, grants for various elements, municipalities that are transferring from one tier to another. Of course, we're not going to benefit much from that, but that's okay. So, it seemed, I guess we'll have to talk to them about what they intend to do with that. So just, thank you for your answers. And I just want to say, I think this is absolutely essential for our community to move forward with this. The costs and the challenges that will be coming in the future are unknown, but potentially, dramatic and devastating. And we need to move from that, reactiveness that you talked about into being able to proactively look to see what are the most significant ways that we can invest in the community to deal with this problem. So thank you very much, and I'm fully in support of moving forward.
Thank you.
Clayton?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. This was fascinating. I just have two questions. First is, I know Princeton, we love to be on the cutting edge, but why is it, in your opinion, that no other municipality has even ventured toward this initiative? That's number one. Number two, the university has, I believe, 30% of the land mass here in Princeton. So I'm wondering, how was this factored into this stormwater management equation? And, what is their impact on all these numbers?
Yeah, so two very good questions. The first is, it wasn't even an option until 2019, and then the pandemic probably didn't hurry anything up. So many other municipalities are actively engaged in the process that you are right now. The fact that, to my knowledge, not one has actually enacted one yet is not surprising to me. These things take time if you're going to do it correctly. It needs to be well thought out. You need to have this kind of stakeholder engagement that you have laid out in the RFP. So the fact that it's been, that act came out in 2019 and there's not one as we sit here in 2023 isn't surprising to me. I think that in a few years you'll see that change, for sure. And your second question is, one of the things that makes Princeton. I mean, you're correct. It's a big, in the eyes of the stormwater utility, it's a big user, right? There's a lot of impervious cover there. So representatives from the university were at both meetings, multiple representatives actually, and were very actively engaged and participated. And the last thing we want this is to be a surprise to anyone, especially someone like that would be looking to support a stormwater utility for, like you said, 30%. I forget what percent of the impervious cover in the municipality, but it wasn't 30%, but it was significant. So they are involved in the process. They're aware of the process, but they would be an impacted user that currently aren't contributing to the at least the tax revenue.
Now I have a follow-up question. So as we get maybe more granular in all of this, is this a negotiated agreement? Like, we're trying to decide what impact is this going to have on the taxpayers in Princeton, and what impact is this going to have on the university? How do you envision that working? Or is that a municipal policy matter?
Well, it's as far as what we did in phase one and what we would do in phase two, we can't decide anything different from one user to the other. And what I mean by that is, unless you're agricultural exemption, which is the only exemption, like you can't decide to have other exemptions. Honestly, we don't, from the number standpoint, we don't know what property is what or who owns it. We just know that it's not agricultural, it's not exempt, and it has this much impervious cover. So there's really not many decisions to make there. It falls out in the numbers of where the impervious cover is. Now, obviously, depending on whose perspective you look at, and if you look at that chart that goes from the left, from the tax revenue percentages to the hypothetical billing units on the right, you do see some shifts, right? The residential, gets a little smaller because there's the commercial stays about the same. But those aren't decisions that are being made. That's just where the numbers are. That's just where the impervious cover is. So it's kind of the easy answer to your question is we don't deal with it. That's just where the impervious cover is. That happens to be, a private educational institution. There's no decision to be made.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Leighton. Mia?
to your question, Leighton, about the university, I know, the stormwater utility has been discussed since the state made it possible. The university certainly had expressed their reservations initially about how it would play out to make sure that they were not disproportionately impacted. They were invited to participate in the stakeholder meetings and to have a seat at the table as this unfolded. I think there, as you said, there are certain aspects of this that are turnkey, but there are other aspects that I think there were concerns by the university that they could be unfairly impacted. I have not heard anything to that effect, so hopefully their participation in the process has alleviated those concerns. And in terms of, there are obviously a lot of details to be worked out about who, the devil's in the details. And I look forward to, we're not going to get answers to all of those questions today because that would be phase 2. And I think you're just here to find out whether we want to proceed with phase 2, in which case we would get answers to those questions. I'm definitely interested in proceeding with phase 2. To your other point, Leighton, about no other municipality having moved forward, I would note that we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of consolidation, which we have also not seen anyone else follow our example. So I think, it's something that we excel at, which is getting out ahead and setting an example. And I think we would be well served to set an example for the state in this regard. So thank you so much for your work on this.
Thank you.
Looking forward to phase 2.
David.
Thanks. I do have one more question that was suggested by Leighton's question, which is, I do know that in our sanitary sewer utility that we do have reduced rates, say, for our affordable housing. And so I'm curious whether there's any wiggle room in terms of the stormwater utility to give reduced rates for certain entities that are providing public goods.
It's a good question. So as I understand the act, there's explicit prohibition against that, in fact. But if you look at the numbers, I'm not sure those users will be, depending on your perspective, negatively impacted in terms of how the numbers fall out. Might be about neutral, I think. We'll see, but yeah, to your main question, it's explicitly prohibited, in fact.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So let's hope there's no more questions that can't be answered, because they can't be answered till we approve doing phase 2. So the real question, so are there any more questions on the presentation? If not, we'll go to the next item, which is the resolution to move forward with phase 2. Any other questions on the presentation? Okay, great. So let's do 23-313, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a professional services agreement with Princeton Hydro LLC for Phase 2 of a stormwater utility feasibility study for a not-to-exceed amount of $149,853. Would someone make that motion? Leighton, I think, was the quickest. Mia's got the second. Questions, comments on the resolution? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that was everybody. So we're moving ahead. Thank you. Yep, appreciate the presentation and
Thank
all
you.
being here. Okay, moving on, we have a list of resolutions. 23-314, resolution of Mayor and Council of Princeton rescinding Resolution 23-126 and authorizing the award of a contract to VMG Group in the not-to-exceed amount of $37,459.60 for roof repairs at the Suzanne Patterson Building using Mercer County Cooperative Contract Purchasing System Contract CK09MERCER2022-10 for countywide roof repairs for the County of Mercer and the Mercer County Cooperative Contract Purchasing System. Thank you, David. David, was that a waive or a motion? Oh, it was a waive, sorry. Okay, but you see, that teaches you never waive at a public meeting. So David gets credit for making the motion.
What did I just bid on?
Yeah, really. Don't worry. Leave your wallet behind. And Eve's got the second. Any questions or comments on this resolution? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 23-315, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing an increase of $11,500 to the not-to-exceed amount for the professional services agreement with Suburban Consulting Engineers, Inc. for community outreach and concept plans for Community Park South for a new not-to-exceed amount of $72,975. Would someone make, Michelle's got the motion and Mia's got the second. Questions or comments on the resolution? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-316, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton amending the term of a professional services agreement with NV5 for preliminary engineering services in connection with the Princeton Safe Routes to School project with no revision to contract amount. David did that on purpose, and Eve's got the second. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-317, resolution authorizing a supplement to an agreement with Gen Electric in the amount of $8,408 for traffic signal electrical maintenance services, increasing the total contract amount to $92,488. Is there a motion on that? Thank you, Eve. Is there a second? David's got the second. Questions or comments? Eve and then Mia?
I had a question on this, which a similar question on another resolution, but I didn't write down the number. This is the case. One of the reasons for the extra financing, for the extra money being needed. I mean, there were a couple of accidents involving poles traffic signals that were mentioned, but also something due to utility construction work. I just want to make sure that when this kind of thing happens, we get reimbursed for our costs.
Correct. We do get reimbursed, but unfortunately, it still counts against the total contract amount.
But we're not.
We're not out of pocket.
We're not. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mia?
You know what I'm going to ask.
Terhune at Harrison Street.
You got it.
Well, the good news is hopefully in our future we will be looking at a roundabout there. But I know we were looking at why the detection system is not working. And I don't have an answer for you, but I will get that to you.
Okay, but between what we passed last meeting and this meeting, there'll be the resources to cover fixing that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
okay.
would be good.
Good.
Any other questions on this one? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 23-318, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a site license agreement with Crown Castle Fiber LLC for one location near 573 Herrontown Road. Michelle's got the motion. David's got the second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-319, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton requesting an extension of time for construction contract award from the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2022 municipal aid grant for the Phase 3 roadway improvements to Witherspoon Street. Layton's got the motion. David's got the second. Questions on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-320, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing change order number 1 to increase the not-to-exceed amount of the contract by $120,000 for a new not-to-exceed total of $225,048, exceeding the 20% limitation for the contract with Magic Touch Construction, Inc. for electrical repairs, maintenance, and miscellaneous services at various locations within the municipality of Princeton. And would someone like to move that? Mia, thank you. Layton's got the second. Questions or comments on that one? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-321, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the award of a bid to Omar and Justin's Inc., trading as Justin Tree Services and Lawn Care, in the not-to-exceed amount of $163,325 for the 2023 tree removal project. And if someone, thank you, Michelle. Eve's got the second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-322, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a bid award to Steve's Trees Professional Tree Services, LLC, in the not-to-exceed amount of $42,700 for the 2023 fall tree planting project. Michelle's got the motion. Eve's got the second. questions or comments? David?
I was just curious. I tried to look through the proposal. I didn't see a number of trees to be planted, and it feels like usually these kinds of contracts, stipulate, X number of trees at a certain cost per tree. This is different, though, or did I just miss it?
I thought
You may
said
have missed it.
100.
It's typically, it's about 100 trees that are being planted.
Okay.
I think that information, that number's, yeah.
I looked, but I did not find, but
360
I don't
pages.
dis-
It's a total of
you know,
100 trees.
missing
Okay.
detail.
I don't think I had a total on it. Yeah,
Yep. All right, so, just so the public could hear that, it says a total of 100 trees.
Yeah.
it says
All right.
on the top.
Any other questions or comments on this one?
Yeah.
All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's always good when someone asks a question, it proves people are actually reading things, so that
Yeah.
reassures the public that we're paying attention, so thank you. 23323, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton awarding a contract to the Valley Butcher LLC for deer processing services for a not-to-exceed amount of $27,000. Layton's got the motion, Michelle's got the second. Questions or comments? David?
Yeah, again, I did the math, and the total contract covers 175 deer, and I was curious if anybody knows if that's comparable to the amount that we've harvested in past years.
That's an upper limit. We don't know if we're going to reach it, but for budgeting purposes.
Okay,
That's-
but it's similar or it's higher than
Higher.
what we've had in the
It's higher.
past? Okay.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
high.
$150
It's
per deer,
aspirational.
right?
$150 per deer.
Right.
Yeah, and
This-
that's an increase in cost, but it was still lower than
Okay.
some of the other quotes that were obtained.
Yeah, but that feeds a lot of,
I'm sorry?
it feeds a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
I'm-
lot of, yeah, so,
I don't have a problem with it. I just,
trying to figure.
I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to see another proposal, for a modification to this contract in
Let's
a
put it
couple
this
of
way.
months.
If you do, that's probably a great thing. Maybe not financially, but for other
Right.
reasons.
Yep.
No, I would be surprised if that were to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that between Trishka and our animal control officer, all these things related to the deer program are very well managed, so I'd be shocked if these things weren't more than adequate. Okay, any other questions on that one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 23324, resolution of the mayor and council authorizing the award of a contract to Magic Touch Construction Company, Inc., in the not-to-exceed amount of $144,655.80, using CK04 New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing Alliance contracts BC-BID-19-70 and, of course, BC-BID-22-19 for the installation of utilities servicing the new sewer modular office at 298 River Road. Thank you, Eve. And who's got the second? Thank you, Mia's got the second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23325, resolution of the mayor and council awarding a bid contract to Eastern Surplus and Equipment Company for the purchase of one high water rescue truck for $257,773. Eve's got the motion, Michelle's got the second. Questions on the Mia?
Did we get all this sorted out?
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Did we ever?
Okay.
Yes.
All
We-
right.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I trust my colleagues, so
Well, it
you
looks
know,
like we-
A lot of-
I can hear that there was a lot of
A
work
lot
that
of
went into
staff
it.
time, a lot of attorney time. We actually had representatives go visit the facility where they do this work. And I would say that, yes. So anyway, the short answer is yes.
Good job, everybody. Save
Sounds
some
good.
money.
All right. Other questions on this one? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can I just make a late comment, like thank you to everyone who put a lot of time and energy into this, because it was a significant amount of money, and we were right to,
Yes.
hesitate, to investigate, and to make sure we were spending the money wisely, so.
That's right.
Yeah. 23326, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton in support of reallocation of the HUD Community Project Funding Grant in the amount of $750,000. Eve's got the motion, Leticia's got the second. Questions on the motion? Eve?
Jim Purcell isn't here, but I want to just extend our thanks to him for coming up with a fabulous proposal that has been embraced enthusiastically by the community and which advances our interests in supporting our historically black community. It advances equity in the community, and it was really fulfills the goal of the grant project for HUD, and was greeted with enthusiasm by Bonnie Watson Coleman's staff. So really, a great change. Better way to spend the money since we were already getting funds for Witherspoon Street. So I'm really glad that this all worked out, and please extend our thanks to Jim.
Terrific. I'm sorry, other questions or comments? Yes, Leighton.
Yes, Deanna, Jim, who's not here, I just want to echo what Eve said. I almost had tears in my eyes when I read through the narrative, how meticulous Jim was when he wrote it, how he looked at the background, how he almost mimicked some of the things that Shirley said. Just to look at the topical view where you hover over it and you look at the location and the path coming through the neighborhood, winding through all of the trees and then going out through Mountain View Avenue toward Johnson Park School is it's going to make the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood so much more potent and Princeton so much more potent. And it's just with so much gratitude, I want to say thank you for on a personal note, and for the neighborhood and for generations of people who are smiling, who left here some time ago. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up is the consent agenda. If no one has any questions on any of those items, someone can move the entire consent agenda. Eve moves the consent agenda. Mia seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
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 That's that. David, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Michelle. Gee, somebody was second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're done. Thank you all. Good night, everybody.